Listen, I need to tell you something about humans, and I need you to actually pay attention this time. My name is Vorix, and I have been working as a docking supervisor on Station Krell 9 for approximately 17 standard cycles now. That is 17 cycles of dealing with every species in this corner of the galaxy. Anthraxians with their forearms and superiority complex, Quillan traders who smell like fermented Zernak fruit, Arvath warriors who think every conversation is a challenge to mortal combat. I have seen it all, or so I thought. Then she arrived. Her name was Dakota Reed, and she was absolutely, completely, utterly unremarkable. At least, that is what I thought when her transport ship docked at Bay 14 on a Tuesday morning. Tuesday, for those of you unfamiliar with human time measurements, is apparently the worst day of their week. Something about it being too far from the weekend but not close enough to complain about Monday anymore. Humans are weird like that. Dakota was human, obviously. Average height for her species, maybe 1.7 meters. Brown hair pulled back in what humans call a ponytail. 3 stains on her jacket. Scuffed boots. A datapad that looked older than my grandfather. She shuffled off the transport with a single duffel bag slung over her shoulder, looking around the station with the kind of tired expression that suggested she had seen too many docking bays in too many systems. "Excuse me," she said, walking up to my security checkpoint. "I am looking for the maintenance director." "Name's Kelver, I think?" I glanced at my screen, pulling up the new arrivals manifest. "You are Dakota Reed? The mechanic?" "That would be me, yeah." She set her bag down with a heavy thump. "Look, I know I am 3 days late. The transport got delayed at the Fornax gate because some idiot tried to smuggle living crystal worms through customs. It was a whole thing. Can you just point me toward the maintenance bay?" 3 days late. Wonderful. Kelvor had been complaining about being short-staffed for weeks, and the human he hired could not even show up on time. I sighed, my throat sacs vibrating in annoyance. Bay 72. Lower level. Take the main lift down and follow the signs. Thanks. She picked up her bag and started walking, then paused. Hey, quick question. The gravity here is 0.93 standard, right? Correct. A. Cool, cool. My knees were starting to hurt on that transport. My gravity sucks. She waved casually and disappeared into the crowd of travelers. I watched her go, already writing her off as another mediocre hire who would quit within a month. Station Krell 9 was not exactly a luxury resort. We were a trading hub on the edge of contested space, which meant long hours, dangerous cargo, and the occasional pirate raid. Most species could handle it. Most humans, from what I had heard, preferred easier assignments closer to their home systems. I went back to my work, scanning incoming ships and processing customs declarations. Boring, routine stuff, exactly how I liked it. Then, about 4 hours later, all the lights in the station went out. Not just dimmed, completely out. Emergency backup systems should have kicked in immediately, but they did not. For approximately 30 seconds, Station Krell 9, which housed over 15,000 beings from 40 different species, was plunged into total darkness. When the lights finally flickered back on, my communication console was exploding with panicked messages. All integrity compromised in Section 7, life support failing in the medical wing. The main reactor showing critical temperature warnings. Half the docking clamps had released, sending 3 ships drifting away from the station. Yet Kelvor, our maintenance director, was on the comm within minutes, his voice high-pitched and stressed. "We have a catastrophic failure in the primary power distribution network. Something overloaded the entire grid. I need all available maintenance crews to report immediately." I abandoned my post and headed down to the lower level. If the station was falling apart, I wanted to at least understand what was happening before we all died horribly. The maintenance bay was absolute chaos when I arrived. Kelvor, a 6-legged Quillan with engineering skills that usually impressed me, was literally running in circles. His lead technician, a Horvath named Crag, was shouting into his comm in 3 different languages. His tools were scattered everywhere. Diagnostic screens showed nothing but error messages. And there, in the middle of it all, standing in front of the main power control panel with her hands on her hips, was Dakota Reed. "Are you kidding me right now?" she said, staring at the panel like it had personally insulted her family. "This is your primary distribution system?" "This is." Kelver spun around. "Who are you? How did you get access to that panel?" "I am your new mechanic, remember?" "Dakota. You hired me. And I got access because your security lockout protocols are from like 40 years ago. I bypassed them with a standard multi-tool." She tapped the panel with one finger. "But that is not your main problem. Your main problem is that whoever designed this system should be fired. Out of a cannon. Into a sun." Cragg stomped over, his massive frame towering over the small human. "Watch your tone, human. That system was designed by Master Engineer Threxus of the Manthrexian Technical Academy. He is a genius." "He is an idiot," Dakota said flatly. "Look at this. Your power coupling on Junction 47 is running through the same relay as your backup systems. Who does that? What kind of moron creates a single point of failure for both primary and backup systems? That is like Engineering 101 stuff. Do not do that. How dare you?" Cragg raised one massive fist. Dakota did not even flinch. She just looked up at him with the most tired expression I have ever seen. "Dude, I have been awake for 36 hours, I have not had coffee in 8, and this station is about 30 minutes away from explosive decompression. You really want to spend time threatening me? Or do you want me to fix your garbage fire of a power grid?" The entire maintenance bay went silent. Nobody talked to Cragg like that. Nobody. The Horvath were a warrior species, and Cragg had a reputation for breaking bones first and asking questions never. But Cragg stared at the human for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he started laughing. Deep, booming laughs that shook his entire body. "I like you, tiny human. Very well. Fix our garbage fire." Dakota nodded. "Great. I need access to the reactor core, a level 4 engineering kit, and someone who can run diagnostics on the secondary power relays while I reroute the primary couplings. Can someone handle that, or do I need to do everything myself?" Kelver opened his mouth, closed it, then pointed at a young Manthrexian technician. "X, get her what she needs. Everyone else, follow her instructions." For the next 6 hours, Dakota Reed proceeded to take apart and rebuild approximately 40% of Station Krell 9's power distribution system. I stayed in the maintenance bay, partially to help if needed, but mostly because I was fascinated. This human, this supposedly average mechanic who showed up 3 days late with grease on her jacket, was moving through the station like she had built it herself. She knew exactly which relays to bypass, which circuits to reroute, which safety protocols could be temporarily disabled without killing everyone. "Voryx, right?" she said at one point, not looking up from the power conduit she was rewiring. "I need you to do me a favor." "What do you need?" "Go to Cargo Bay 12 and find a shipment of thallium power cores that arrived 2 days ago. Manifest says they are from the Gorvax Mining Corporation. Bring me 3 of them. Those are scheduled for transport to the outer colonies. I cannot just take them." She finally looked up, and her expression was somewhere between amused and exhausted. "Look, buddy. Option 1, you get me those power cores and I use them to stabilize the reactor before it melts through the hull. Option 2, you do not get me those power cores, the reactor explodes, and everyone on this station dies horribly. Which option sounds better to you?" "I will get the power cores." "Smart man." By hour 8, the lights were stable. By hour 10, life support was back to full capacity. By hour 12, Dakota crawled out from inside a maintenance tunnel, covered head to toe in lubricant and coolant fluid, and announced that the power grid was now functioning at 107% efficiency. 107%? Kelvor stared at his diagnostic screen. "That is impossible. The maximum rated efficiency is 102%. Dakota wiped her face with a rag. which only spread the grease around more. Yeah, well, I replaced about 60 components with better ones, rerouted half your primary circuits, and installed a load balancing system that your master engineer apparently never heard of. You are welcome, by the way. This is incredible. Kelvor was practically dancing. Do you realize what this means? Our energy costs will decrease by at least 8%. That is a massive savings over the course of a year. Cool. Dakota yawned. Is there somewhere I can sleep? I am about to pass out. Cragg stepped forward, placing one massive hand on her shoulder. It was probably meant to be gentle, but Dakota visibly staggered under the weight. You have earned rest, human. You saved this station. You are a warrior. I am a mechanic, Dakota corrected. But thanks. Seriously, though, sleep. Where? I ended up showing her to the crew quarters on level 9. The room was small, basic, nothing special. Dakota did not seem to care. She dropped her duffel bag on the floor, kicked off her boots, and collapsed onto the bunk without even taking off her jacket. Hey, Voryx, she mumbled, already half asleep. Yes? Tomorrow, I am going to need a lot of coffee, like a dangerous amount of coffee. Can you make that happen? I will see what I can do. You are a true friend. She rolled over and was snoring within seconds. I stood there for a moment, looking at this strange human who had somehow saved our entire station in her first shift, and I realized something important. I had been completely, entirely, catastrophically wrong about Dakota Reed. She was not unremarkable. She was terrifying. Word spread quickly through the station. Within 2 days, everyone knew about the human mechanic who had fixed the power grid. Within a week, she had repaired 17 supposedly unfixable systems, redesigned the cargo bay loading mechanisms to improve efficiency by 30%, and personally rebuilt a damaged docking clamp using spare parts and what she called creative problem-solving. The Manthrexian engineers hated her because she kept pointing out flaws in their designs. The Horvath warriors loved her because she never backed down from an argument. The Quillen traders respected her because she charged fair prices for her work and always delivered on time. Me? I was just trying to understand how one human could be so good at fixing things. It is not that complicated, Dakota explained one evening while she was upgrading the security systems at my checkpoint. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by tools and components, working on the scanner array. Most species overthink engineering. They add redundancies and safety systems and backup protocols until everything is so complicated that it barely works. Humans learned a long time ago that the simplest solution is usually the best one. But your species is known for being cautious, I pointed out. Your ships have more safety features than any other species in the known galaxy. Oh, we are paranoid as hell, Dakota agreed cheerfully. We just express it differently. Other species add more systems. Humans make simpler systems that are harder to break in the first place. Plus, we have a pretty long history of stuff exploding in our faces, so we got good at learning from mistakes. She finished connecting a circuit board, and the security scanner immediately hummed to life, running faster and smoother than it ever had before. There you go. Your scanner is now 30% faster and can detect about 100 more contraband items. But how much do I owe you? Nothing. You got me coffee when I needed it. We are even. That was another thing about Dakota. She never charged for small jobs. If someone had helped her, or been kind to her, or just happened to need something fixed, she would do it for free. The station administrator, a strict Quillen named Horvex, nearly had a breakdown when he saw how little she was charging for her services. You could be making 5 times this amount, he shouted during their first official meeting. Dakota just shrugged. Maybe. But then people could not afford to fix their stuff, and broken stuff is dangerous in space. I would rather everyone be safe than be rich. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. Cool story. Is this meeting done? I have to fix the water reclamation system in Section 4 before it backs up and floods half the residential level. Horvex stared at her. speechless. Dakota gave him a thumbs up and walked out. 3 weeks after her arrival, pirates attacked the station. It was not a full assault, just a small raiding party trying to steal cargo from the docking bays. 5 ships, maybe 30 raiders total. Station Krell 9 had security forces, of course, but they were scattered throughout the facility and it took time to coordinate a response. The pirates breached Bay 72, which, unfortunately for them, was right next to the main maintenance workshop. Dakota was inside, working on a damaged gravity compensator, when the breach alarm started blaring. I was in the security center when the reports started coming in. Multiple hostiles in Bay 72. They are armed with plasma weapons. All units respond. What about the maintenance crew? I asked the security chief, a massive Horvath named Drex. Drex checked his screens. 3 technicians were in the workshop when the breach occurred. They are probably hiding or running. Dakota Reed is in there. Drex paused. The human mechanic? Yes. He was quiet for a moment. If she is smart, she will hide until we clear the area. That is when Dakota's voice came over the station-wide comm system. Hey, quick question. If I hit pirates with a heavy magnetic lift unit, is that considered lethal force? Asking for a friend. Drex and I stared at each other. Dakota, Drex said carefully, activating his comm. Stay where you are. Do not engage the hostiles. We have security teams on the way. Yeah, about that. They are kinda trying to steal the cargo containers in my workshop. Which is rude, honestly. I just organized those, to hide and wait for security. There was a long pause. Then Dakota said, Okay, so funny story. I maybe did not hide, and I maybe activated the emergency hull sealing system to trap them in the bay. And they are maybe really mad about it now. You did what? In my defense, they shot at me first. That seems like important context. The security feeds from Bay 72 suddenly came online, and what I saw made absolutely no sense. Dakota Reed was standing on top of a cargo container, holding what appeared to be a plasma welding torch in one hand and a piece of broken pipe in the other. Below her, 30 confused and increasingly angry pirates were trying to figure out why the bay doors would not open. One of them, a large Quillen with far too many weapons, pointed up at her. You, human, open these doors. Nope. Dakota called back cheerfully. But I will make you a deal. You leave your weapons on the ground, sit down, and wait for security, and I will not vent the entire bay into space. You are bluffing. You will die too, maybe. But I am wearing a maintenance suit with a built-in oxygen supply. You are not. So whose day is going to get worse faster? The pirate leader aimed his weapon at her. Open the doors or I will shoot you. Dakota sighed. Why does everyone always go with violence? It is so boring. She pressed a button on her suit. Every single magnetic clamp in the cargo bay activated simultaneously. The pirates, all wearing metal armor and carrying metal weapons, were immediately slammed to the floor by the powerful magnetic fields. They were not hurt, just stuck, unable to move or lift their weapons. A few tried to struggle free, but the magnets were too strong. Dakota hopped down from the cargo container, walking calmly between the trapped raiders. See? Was that so hard? Now we can all just wait for security like civilized beings. She sat down on a crate and pulled out her datapad, casually reading something while 30 angry pirates yelled threats at her. By the time security arrived, Dakota had already confiscated all their weapons and organized them by type. For your inventory reports, she explained, handing Drex a data chip. Everything is cataloged. You are welcome. Drex just stood there, looking at the trapped pirates, then at the small human, then back at the pirates. How did you do this? Magnets. Yes, but how did you activate all the cargo clamps at once? They are not networked together. They operate independently. Dakota grinned. They were not networked. But I got bored last week and installed a centralized control system so I could move cargo more efficiently. Turns out it is also great for stopping pirates. That evening, the entire station bought Dakota drinks at the main cantina. Orvath warriors slapped her on the back so hard she nearly fell over. Manthrexian engineers begrudgingly admitted she might be competent. Quillen traders offered her jobs at triple her current salary. Dakota accepted all the drinks, thanked everyone, and then went back to her quarters to sleep. I found her the next morning in the maintenance bay, already working on a damaged thruster assembly. "You are famous now," I told her. "Everyone is talking about the human who stopped 30 pirates by herself." "I used magnets," Dakota said, not looking up from her work. "It is not that impressive. You trapped armed raiders using cargo equipment. That is extremely impressive." She shrugged. "I just saw a problem and fixed it. Same as anything else. Most people would have hidden." "Yeah, well," she set down her tools and looked at me. "Here is the thing about being a mechanic, Voryx. You spend your whole life fixing broken stuff. Ships, stations, equipment, whatever. After a while, you stop seeing things as too hard or too scary. You just see problems that need solutions. Those pirates? They were a problem. The magnets were a solution. Simple. That is a very human way of looking at things." "Probably." She went back to work. "Hey, while you are here, can you help me carry this thruster assembly to the testing bay? It weighs about 60 kilos and my back is killing me." I helped her carry the assembly, and as we walked through the station, I noticed something. People were not just greeting Dakota anymore. They were moving out of her way, nodding with respect. Some of the younger technicians were watching her with obvious admiration. Dakota Reed had been on station Krell 9 for less than a month, and somehow she had gone from being an unremarkable late arrival to being one of the most respected beings on the entire station, and she still had no idea. That was the thing about humans I was learning. They did not demand respect. They did not fight for status. They just did their jobs, solved problems, and treated everyone fairly. And somehow, without even trying, they ended up commanding more respect than species who spent their entire lives pursuing it. It was frustrating. It was confusing. And it was absolutely, undeniably effective. I watched Dakota set up the thruster assembly in the testing bay, already running calculations in her head, grease on her hands and determination in her eyes. "Hey, Voryx," she said suddenly. "Yes? When do you can tell? Thanks for getting me those power cores on my first day. I know that was probably against protocol. You saved the station. It was worth the risk." She smiled. "Still, thanks. You are a good supervisor." As I left the testing bay, I realized something important. Dakota Reed was not just a good mechanic. She was not just a problem solver. She was something far more dangerous to the established order of the galaxy. She was proof that humans did not need to be warriors or diplomats or leaders to change everything around them. Sometimes they just needed to be good at their jobs. And that, more than anything else, was what made them terrifying. The thing about space stations is that they are always one malfunction away from disaster. Most beings accept this as a fact of life. You live on a spinning metal box surrounded by the vacuum of space. You learn to be comfortable with danger. Dakota Reed, however, seemed to take this as a personal challenge. 2 months after she arrived, Station Krell 9 was running better than it had in 5 years. The power grid operated at peak efficiency. The life support systems never hiccuped. Even the waste reclamation units, which everyone hated dealing with, were somehow working better than factory specifications. The station administrator, Horvex, actually smiled during his quarterly efficiency report. Horvex never smiled. It was unsettling. But then things got complicated. It started when the Verithian delegation arrived. The Verithians were a relatively new species in galactic politics, only having achieved faster-than-light travel about 50 cycles ago. They were tall, elegant beings with silver skin and a superiority complex that made the Manthrexians look humble by comparison. Their home world was rich in rare minerals, which meant every major faction in the galaxy wanted to establish trade agreements with them. Station Krell 9 had been chosen as neutral ground for negotiations between the Verithian government and 3 different trading consortiums. It was a big deal. The kind of big deal that came with extra security, diplomatic protocols, and enough political pressure to make everyone nervous. The Verithian ambassador, a being named Kelthrus, arrived with an entourage of 20 staff members, 4 security guards, and enough luggage to supply a small army. He swept through the docking bay like he owned the place, barely acknowledging the greeting committee that Horvex had assembled. "This station is adequate," Kelthrus announced, his voice dripping with condescension. "Barely. I expect my quarters to be maintained at exactly 22 degrees, with humidity at 45%. My staff requires accommodations of similar quality, and I will need constant access to your communication arrays for secure transmissions to my home world." Horvex bowed deeply, his 6 legs bending in the traditional Quillan gesture of respect. "Of course, Ambassador. We have prepared our finest diplomatic suite for you. If there is anything you need, please do not hesitate to ask." "I will need many things," Kelthrus said dismissively. "This station is clearly designed for lesser species. We will require modifications." I watched this exchange from my security checkpoint, already dreading the next few weeks. Difficult guests were nothing new, but the Verithians had a reputation for being impossibly demanding. Every station that had hosted them reported massive headaches. Dakota walked past my checkpoint right as Kelthrus was listing his 17th requirement, something about needing special atmospheric filters for his quarters. She paused, listening for a moment, then leaned over to me. "Is that guy for real?" she whispered. "Unfortunately, yes, he is the Verithian ambassador. He seems delightful." Her tone was so dry it could have dehydrated a water world. "Let me guess, everyone has to bend over backwards to keep him happy. The diplomatic protocols require us to accommodate reasonable requests from official delegations, right? And I bet everything he asks for is technically reasonable." She shook her head. "I give it 3 days before someone snaps and punches him. That would create a diplomatic incident. Worth it, though?" She was joking, of course. Probably. With Dakota, it was sometimes hard to tell. The first day went smoothly enough. Kelthrus and his entourage settled into their quarters. The diplomatic meetings began in the conference center on level 3. Everything was proceeding according to schedule. Then, on day 2, Kelthrus called an emergency meeting with Horvex. I was present because station security needed to be informed of any issues that might affect station operations. What I witnessed was, frankly, absurd. Though the temperature in my quarters fluctuated by 0.3 degrees last night, Kelthrus was practically shouting. "This is completely unacceptable. How can you expect me to conduct important negotiations when I cannot even sleep properly?" Horvex was practically vibrating with stress. "Ambassador, I sincerely apologize. Our climate control systems are functioning within normal parameters. 0.3 degrees is well within acceptable variance. Not for my species. Verithians require precise environmental conditions. I demand that you fix this immediately." "We will do everything we can, Ambassador. Everything is not enough. I want it fixed now." Horvex turned to Kelvor, who had been summoned to the meeting. "Can you adjust the climate controls to be more precise?" Kelvor spread his 6 legs in a gesture of helplessness. "The system is already operating at maximum precision. To achieve better stability would require completely rebuilding the environmental processors for that section. That would take weeks and cost a fortune." "Then do it," Kelthrus snapped. "Ambassador," I interjected carefully, "such modifications would affect the environmental systems for over 300 other residents in that sector. We cannot disrupt their lives for such a minor adjustment." Kelthrus fixed me with a cold stare. "Minor? You dare call my comfort minor? Perhaps you do not understand the importance of these negotiations. The trade agreements we are discussing could shift the balance of power in this entire sector. My comfort is essential to their success." He swept out of the room, his robes flowing dramatically behind him. Horvex immediately slumped in his chair. "This is a disaster. If Kelthrus complains to the Galactic Council, our station could lose certification as a diplomatic venue. That would cost us millions in revenue." "That is not this. He's complaining about 0.3 degrees, I said. Surely the Council would see that as unreasonable. The Verithians have significant political influence right now. The Council will side with them regardless of how unreasonable they are. Kelver shook his head. "I can try to adjust the systems, but without a complete rebuild I cannot guarantee better precision." "Do what you can," Horvex said miserably, "and pray to whatever gods you believe in that Kelthrus does not find anything else to complain about. I should have known better than to hope." Over the next 3 days, Kelthrus filed complaints about the water pressure in his shower, the slight delay in his communication array, the texture of the floor covering in his quarters, the color of the lighting in the corridors, and the fact that one of his meals arrived at 68.4 degrees instead of exactly 70 degrees. The entire maintenance crew was running themselves ragged trying to accommodate his demands. Kelvor stopped sleeping. Crag actually threw a wrench across the workshop in frustration, something I had never seen him do before. And Dakota? She was staying suspiciously quiet. I found her in the maintenance bay on the evening of day 5, working on what appeared to be a custom environmental control unit. "What is that?" I asked. "A solution," she said simply. "Or at least, I hope it is, for the ambassador's temperature issue, among other things." She soldered a connection, checked it with a diagnostic scanner, then nodded in satisfaction. "Kelvor asked me to build a dedicated climate processor for the diplomatic quarters, something that can maintain temperature within 0.1 degrees and humidity within 2% variance. Can you actually do that?" "I already did it. This is the finished unit." She patted the device affectionately. "It is a thing of beauty. Monitors 12 different environmental factors simultaneously, makes real-time adjustments, self-corrects for system drift. Kelthrus could set his quarters to be exactly like his home world, down to the air pressure, and this baby would maintain it perfectly." I stared at the device, then at Dakota. "How long did this take you?" "About 40 hours. I have not slept much." She yawned as if to emphasize the point. "But it is done. Kelvor is going to install it tomorrow morning. Hopefully that will shut Kelthrus up for at least a few days." "You did not have to do this," she shrugged. "Yeah, well, everyone was stressed out and miserable. I had the skills to fix the problem, so I fixed it. That is kind of my whole thing." The next morning, Kelvor and 2 technicians installed Dakota's environmental control unit in the diplomatic quarters. Within an hour, the temperature, humidity, air pressure, and even the atmospheric composition were all precisely calibrated to Verithian specifications. Kelthrus inspected the system personally, running his own diagnostic scans. He checked every setting twice. He spent 20 minutes trying to find something wrong with it. Finally, reluctantly, he said, "This is acceptable." Coming from Kelthrus, that was practically a glowing endorsement. For exactly 6 hours, everyone on the station breathed a sigh of relief. Then the real problem started. I was at my checkpoint when the emergency alert came through, red lights flashing, alarms blaring, the kind of alerts that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. "Hull breach detected in Section 12, the automated warning system announced. "Emergency bulkheads activating. All personnel evacuate immediately." Section 12 was part of the station's main structural ring. A hull breach there was serious. Really serious. The kind of serious that could compromise the entire station if not contained immediately. I abandoned my post and ran toward the security center. Drex was already coordinating the response, his massive Horvath frame hunched over the tactical displays. "What happened?" I demanded. "Unknown. We detected a small explosion in Section 12 approximately 2 minutes ago. The hull breach is currently contained by emergency bulkheads, but we are reading significant structural damage." He pulled up a schematic. "The breach is located near the primary power conduits for the diplomatic quarters. My blood, such as it was, went cold. The diplomatic quarters? Correct. We are trying to determine if this was an accident or sabotage. Get Dakota, I said immediately. The human mechanic? Why? Because if anyone can figure out what happened and fix it, she can. Drex did not argue. He sent the summons. Dakota arrived in the security center 7 minutes later, still in her sleep clothes, her hair a mess, holding a cup of coffee like it was a holy relic. Someone better be dying, she said. I was having the first good sleep I have had in a week. Drex pulled up the damage reports. We have a hull breach in Section 12. Initial analysis suggests an explosion in the power conduits, but we cannot determine the cause. Can you investigate? Dakota studied the displays, her eyes going wide. Oh no, that is bad. We are aware it is bad. No, you do not understand. That section has triple redundant safety systems. For an explosion to happen there, multiple safeguards would have had to fail simultaneously. She set down her coffee and started pulling up more detailed schematics. Either you had the worst luck in galactic history, or someone deliberately sabotaged those systems. Sabotage? Horvex had just arrived, looking even more stressed than usual. But who would do such a thing? Dakota was already working, her fingers flying over the control interface. I need access to the maintenance logs for Section 12. Every repair, every inspection, every time anyone opened a panel or ran a diagnostic. Can you get me that? Of course. Horvex transmitted his authorization codes. Dakota spent the next 10 minutes reading through logs, cross-referencing data, and muttering to herself. Finally, she looked up with a grim expression. Someone tampered with the power conduits 3 days ago. They installed a small explosive device on a timer, then covered their tracks by filing false maintenance reports. The explosion was timed to look like a systems failure, but it was definitely intentional. The room went silent. Who would do this? Horvex whispered. Dakota pulled up a security recording. According to the access logs, there was only one person with the right security clearance who entered that section 3 days ago during the maintenance window when no one else was around. She highlighted a timestamp. One of Ambassador Caltras's security guards. It's impossible, Horvath said. The Varethians are here for diplomatic negotiations. Why would they sabotage our station? I have no idea, Dakota said. But the evidence is pretty clear. Either that guard went rogue, or this was planned. Rex was already moving. I will detain the security team for questioning. Wait, I said. If we accuse the Varithian delegation of sabotage without absolute proof, we could create a diplomatic disaster. If we do nothing, Dakota pointed out, there might be more explosives. This breach was contained, but the next one might not be. She was right. We had no good options. Drex made a decision. I will question the guard quietly without making formal accusations. If he is responsible, we will have proof. If not, we can investigate other possibilities. He left with the security team. Dakota turned back to the displays. In the meantime, I need to inspect that breach personally. If there are more explosives, I will find them. You want to go into a damaged section with possible structural instability? Horvex looked horrified. Yep, it is not the worst idea I have had this week. She headed for the door. Vorix, you are coming with me. I need someone to carry equipment and watch for falling debris. Well, me? Because you are smart enough to run when I tell you to run, and I trust you not to panic. Let's go. I followed her, because apparently I had lost all sense of self-preservation. We suited up in emergency gear and entered Section 12 through a maintenance access point. The damage was immediately apparent. Scorched walls, twisted metal, exposed wiring sparking occasionally. The emergency bulkheads had contained the breach, but the area was a disaster. Dakota moved through the wreckage with practiced efficiency, scanning every surface with a diagnostic tool. If I were going to plant more explosives, she muttered, where would I put them? Somewhere that would cause maximum damage, but would not be easily detected during routine inspections. The support struts, I suggested. Too obvious. Anyone checking structural integrity would find them. She paused at a junction box. But this is perfect. It is part of the backup power system. No one checks these unless the main system fails. She opened the junction box. Inside was another explosive device, blinking with a timer that showed less than 10 minutes remaining. "Run," Dakota said calmly. "What?" "Run! Now! Get everyone out of this section." I ran. I triggered every emergency evacuation alarm in Section 12. I contacted security and told them to clear the adjacent sections. I did everything I could think of. And then, because I am apparently an idiot, I ran back to Dakota. She was still in front of the junction box, her hands inside the device carefully disconnecting wires. "I told you to run," she said without looking up. "You did not run. I am trying to disarm this thing. Do you know how to disarm explosives?" "Not even a little bit." She laughed, and it sounded slightly unhinged. "But I know electronics, and bombs are just electronics with anger management issues. If I can figure out which wire controls the detonator, I can stop the timer. There are 6 wires. I am aware." The timer showed 4 minutes. "Dakota, we need to leave, now. If this thing explodes, it will take out the structural supports for this entire section. Hundreds of people could die." Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking slightly. "I have to try. 3 minutes. Talk me through this," she said. "Which wire looks most important to you?" "I have no idea." "Great. Super helpful." She studied the device. "Okay, here is what we know. This is a timed explosive, which means it needs a power source, a timer, and a detonator. The power source is probably this capacitor here. The timer is that display. The detonator is somewhere in this mess of wires. 2 minutes. Most bomb makers use a dead man switch or a failsafe. Cut the wrong wire, boom. But this one? This was meant to look like an accident. So maybe, just maybe, it is not that sophisticated. 1 minute. Dakota grabbed a pair of wire cutters. Here goes nothing. She cut the blue wire. Nothing happened. Okay, not that one. 45 seconds. She cut the red wire. The timer kept counting. 30 seconds. "Third time is the charm," she muttered, reaching for the green wire. 20 seconds. She cut the wire. The timer stopped with 9 seconds remaining. We both stared at the device in complete silence. Then Dakota started laughing. Not panicked laughter. Genuine, relieved, exhausted laughter. "I cannot believe that worked. I had like a 30% confidence level on that guess." 30%, I shouted. "You risked both our lives on a 30% chance? Would you have preferred I let it explode?" "I would have preferred you run away with me," she grinned. "Where is the fun in that?" I wanted to strangle her. I also wanted to recommend her for every bravery award in the galaxy. She carefully removed the explosive device from the junction box and carried it like it was a precious artifact. "We should get this to security. Evidence and all that." By the time we made it back to the security center, Drex had finished interrogating the Varethian security guard. The guard had confessed to everything. Apparently, Kelthrus had orchestrated the entire plot as a way to pressure the station into giving him better negotiating leverage. The plan was to cause damage, blame station security failures, and demand massive concessions from the trading consortiums who were using Krell 9 as their meeting location. It was stupid, short-sighted, and incredibly illegal. Drex arrested the entire Varethian delegation. Kelthrus protested loudly, threatening legal action and diplomatic sanctions. Nobody cared. Attempted mass murder tends to override diplomatic immunity. The trading consortiums, grateful that the station had prevented a disaster, actually increased their business with Krell 9. Horvex got a commendation from the Galactic Council. Drex got a promotion. And Dakota? She went back to work like nothing had happened. I found her 2 days later in the maintenance bay, repairing a damaged sensor array. "You saved the station," I said. "Again, I disarmed a bomb," she corrected. "Which was terrifying, by the way. Do not recommend it. You could have died." Yeah, probably." She did not look up from her work. But I did not, so everything worked out. "How are you so calm about this?" She finally stopped working and looked at me. You want the real answer? I am not calm. I am exhausted. I am stressed, and I still have nightmares about that timer counting down. But sitting around worrying about what could have happened does not help anyone. So I fix things. I do my job. I keep moving forward. That is very human, maybe. Or maybe it is just how you survive when everything around you is constantly trying to kill you. She went back to work. I watched her for a moment. This small, tired, grease-stained human who had somehow become the most important person on the entire station. And I finally understood something. Dakota Reed did not command respect because she was strong or brave or clever, although she was all those things. She commanded respect because she never stopped trying. No matter how difficult the problem, no matter how dangerous the situation, she always looked for a solution. She always helped. She always cared. That was why people respected her, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. Every single day, with every single action. Over the following weeks, word spread about what had happened. Other stations heard the story. Trading ships carried the tale across the sector. The human mechanic who had stopped a terrorist plot with 30 seconds to spare became something of a legend. Job offers came pouring in. Corporate contracts, military positions, research facilities. Everyone wanted to hire Dakota Reed. She turned them all down. I like it here, she told Horvex when he tried to convince her to at least consider the offers. The people are decent, the work is interesting, and nobody bothers me about dress codes or office politics. Why would I leave? Some of these offers are for 10 times your current salary. Money is great and all, but I can already afford everything I need. What am I going to do with 10 times more? Buy a bigger apartment that I never stay in because I am always working? No thanks. Horvex gave up trying to convince her. The station threw a celebration in her honor anyway. The main cantina was packed with beings from every species on Krell 9. Cragg gave a speech about human courage. Several Mantrexian engineers grudgingly admitted she was better at her job than they were. The Quillen traders presented her with a ceremonial tool set worth more than a year's salary. Dakota accepted it all with her usual combination of grace and awkwardness, thanked everyone sincerely, and then tried to sneak out early, because she was uncomfortable being the center of attention. I caught her at the door. Leaving your own party? I asked. It is weird having everyone stare at me, she admitted. I just did my job. I do not understand why that is celebration-worthy. You saved hundreds of lives, multiple times. That is worth celebrating, she shrugged. If you say so. Hey, Vorix, thanks for having my back these past few months. You are a good friend. You as well. She smiled and disappeared into the corridor, probably heading back to her quarters to finally get some sleep. I returned to the party and found Kelvor standing near the bar, staring pensively at his drink. What are you thinking about? I asked. That human, he said quietly. When she first arrived, I thought she was just another mediocre hire, someone to do basic repairs and maintenance. I never imagined she would become this important. None of us did. It makes me wonder, Kelvor continued, how many other humans are out there, just doing their jobs, not making a fuss, and quietly changing everything around them. It was a good question, one I had been thinking about myself. Humans had been part of galactic society for less than a century. They were still considered a minor species by most standards. No massive military, no economic dominance, no political clout. But they had people like Dakota Reed, mechanics and engineers and technicians who did not seek glory or power or fame, who just wanted to do good work and help people. And maybe, just maybe, that was more dangerous than any weapon. 3 months after the Varethian incident, I was reassigned to a different station. Promotion to Regional Security Coordinator. Better pay, more responsibility. All the things you are supposed to want in a career. My last day on Krell 9, Dakota showed up at my checkpoint with a small box. Leaving present, she said, handing it to me. Inside was a custom-built diagnostic scanner, smaller and more efficient than anything on the market. "I built it last week," she explained. "Figured you could use a good scanner in your new job. This one can detect about 200 different types of contraband, runs for 72 hours on a single charge, and fits in your pocket." "You are welcome, Dakota. This must have taken you days to build." 5 days, actually. "But you helped me out when I first arrived, and you trusted me when everyone else thought I was crazy. Seemed fair to return the favor." I did not know what to say. On my homeworld, such gifts implied significant social debt. But humans did not think that way. They just gave because they wanted to. "Thank you. I finally managed. I will think of you every time I use it. Just do not arrest anyone innocent," she said with a grin. "That would be awkward." I left Krell 9 that afternoon. As my transport pulled away from the docking bay, I took one last look at the station. Somewhere in there, Dakota Reed was already back at work, fixing something that was broken, helping someone who needed it, making everything around her just a little bit better. That was 18 cycles ago. I still use the scanner she built. It has never failed once. And every time I hear about a human doing something impossible, solving some unsolvable problem, turning a disaster into a triumph, I think about Dakota Reed and smile. Because that is what humans do. They see a problem and they fix it. They see someone in trouble and they help. They see a system that does not work and they make it better. They do not do it for glory or recognition. They do it because it needs doing. And somehow, without anyone quite noticing, they change the entire galaxy, one repaired system at a time. I heard recently that Dakota is still on Krell 9. Still fixing things, still refusing job offers that would make her rich, still drinking too much coffee and working too many hours, and complaining about poor engineering designs, and still commanding more respect than admirals, diplomats, or corporate executives, because she is not just a mechanic. She is the proof that humans do not need grand titles or massive armies to matter. They just need to be good at what they do, care about the people around them, and never stop trying to make things better. That, more than anything else, is what makes them extraordinary. And that is why, when the galaxy finally figures out what humans are capable of, we're all going to be in for a very interesting future. But until then, somewhere on a distant trading station, a small human with grease on her hands is fixing another broken system, helping another stranded traveler, and quietly, patiently, showing everyone around her what it means to be worthy of respect. Not because she demands it, but because she earns it every single day,